Good morning, everybody. Ken here.
And good morning, this is Imelda. And I'm beginning with the Society News for Friday the 8th of December 2017. Tuesday, the strollers will be meeting this Tuesday the 12th of December. The location for the stroll is Yarmouth Pier, and there will also be a Christmas lunch. For more details, please call Laura Jasper on 522205 or email enquiries@iwsb.org.uk. The next session of Introducing Millbrook House will take place on Tuesday the 12th of December. This is a chance for anybody to come along and discover what is available in terms of equipment or services to visually impaired people. Introducing Millbrook House is open to everyone who would like to find out more about what is offered. The session runs from 10:30 until 12 noon. We will be holding our formal festive afternoon at Millbrook House for service users on Tuesday the 12th of December 2 till 4. Mulled wine and mince pies will be served, and there will be musical entertainments by Ricky J and the Wight Euchres. The dolphins are swimming this Tuesday the 12th of December in Ryde at the waterside pool. The pool is closed to the public while the group swims. There are male and female volunteers to help you get in and out of the pool, as well as lifeguards to ensure your safety. To join the dolphins, please call the Society first to notify us of your swimming ability. On Wednesday, the Society Coffee Morning will be held this Wednesday, the 13th of December. Come and join us for a cup of coffee and a chat, and why not bring a friend along as well, as the coffee mornings are open to all. And on Thursday, the Knitters and Natterers will be meeting at Millbrook House from 10:30 till 2. As a change to the usual schedule, they will be going for their annual Christmas lunch after the Grand Christmas Raffle draw at 11 a.m. And the Grand Christmas Raffle will be drawn on Thursday the 14th of December at 11 a.m. here at Millbrook House. Prizes include a £100 cash prize, £50 Dress for Less voucher, Christmas hamper and many more. Tickets are still available for £1 each from Millbrook House. And Friday, the Striders group will be meeting on Friday the 15th of December for their Christmas lunch. For more details, please call Laura Jasper on 522205 or again email enquiries@iwsb.org.uk. And any other news, it is the Society is currently exhibiting a Christmas tree in the Wilberforce Hall as part of the Bryston Christmas Tree Festival, which is held from the 7th, that's yesterday, to the 10th of December. All 7 venues are open daily from 10 until 5. This year's marks the 21st festival, with all proceedings going to support local and national charities. Further information can be found at www.bxtf.org. And we will also be fundraising at the Bryston School Christmas Fair on Saturday the 9th of December, 1 until 4. Please come along and support the Isle of Wight Society for the Blind's short story writing competition award ceremony on Monday the 18th of December at Newport Minster in St Thomas's Square. Doors open at 5:30 p.m. with the ceremony starting at 7. An audio promotion can be heard later in this week's edition of the Talking News.
Scaffolding news. Right, please find below a list of known footway obstructions for works including scaffolding or hoarding. We are unable to include end dates, as many are extended on a week-by-week basis. Also included are tables and chairs permits that have been issued in the past week. In the Bay Area, current scaffolds, 70 High Street, Shanklin. Copper kettle, 29 High Street, Shanklin. Scaffolding is due up at 3 Fort Street, Sandown, due up 19th of December 2017. Ventnor area. Hamborough House, Ventnor. Cowes area. Current scaffolds. Development site at Castle Street, East Cowes. 20A Shooters Hill, Cowes. Flat 1, 10 Birmingham Road, Cowes. Current holdings 70 to 73 Arctic Road, Cowes. 93 High Street, Cowes. Scaffolding is due up at Red Squirrel's Shop and Bella. 73 and 74 High Street, Cowes, due up 2nd of January 2018. Newport area, current scaffolds, 38 Key Street, Newport, 18 Logley Street, Newport, Fuji Film, 79 St James Street, Newport. Scaffolding is due up at Readers, 33 South Street, Newport, due up on the 12th of February 2018. Ryde area, current scaffolds, Oasis Dental Practice, 9 Melville Street, Ryde. The Yarbridge, 99 New Road, Brading. The Star Inn, High Street, Ryde. Overbank, Up Green Road, St Helens. 69 High Street, Ryde. 8 John Street, Ryde. Scaffolding is due up at the Castle Lodge, Dover Street, St Helens, due up 12th January 2018. This week's In Touch. Peter Wight is joined in the studio by author Red Zell, Keen Cook, Chris McKinnon, and blogger Joy Edo to talk about their suggestions for the best and worst Christmas present for a person with little or no sight. One of the suggestions was to buy people an experience or tickets of an event, as this would also involve the gift of the giver's time.
And now the Isle of Wight County Press headlines for the 8th of December 2017. There are two. Number 1, shock closure of care home, and number 2, headline acts for Isle of Wight Festival 2018. And first, the shock closure of care home. Residents in pyjamas moved out in the night. Elderly people were moved out of Carisbrook Care Home dressed only in their nightclothes and clutching bin bags of possessions, it has been alleged. Following concerns raised by Watchdog, the Care Qualities Commission, the Isle of Wight Council rehoused residents to other care homes. Due to concerns raised, CQC inspectors visited Fairview in Clatterfield Road on November the 2nd, 6th and 30th. The inspections identified serious problems which were putting residents at risk, including unsatisfactory administration of medicine and unclean conditions. The CQC used its urgent enforcement powers to ban the home run by Oak Ray Care from admitting new residents and issued a notice of potential closure, which the owners can appeal. Meanwhile, the Isle of Wight Council has rehoused the 22 existing residents. The residents were moved out of the privately run care home with only days' notice and put into other Isle of Wight homes with no choice about where they went. Oak Ray has issued a statement apologising to the residents and families for the problems at Fairview. It pledged to regain the high standards it says it prides itself in. According to relatives, residents were put into minibuses with blankets and bin bags, some on cold, dark evenings, and moved across the island to unfamiliar care homes. One relative, who wished to remain anonymous, said, "A lot of the residents suffer from dementia, and they get used to one place and get to know the staff. When they're moved, they can get depressed and become susceptible to illness. When you transfer elderly people, it is so traumatic for them, and some of them do not survive. We had no notice at all, and it is less than 3 weeks before Christmas. They were moved out so rapidly, staff did not get a chance to say goodbye to some residents," a carer told the county press. Another relative, who wished to remain anonymous, said, "The way it's been handled is disgraceful and has upset everyone. I rang up inquiring how my mum was, and the new manager says, 'Haven't you heard? The home is closing.' I was absolutely shocked. I was told letters were sent out, but we didn't get one. My mum is 93 and had never lived outside of Newport, and she has been moved across the island. I'm absolutely disgusted. She's been dumped in a home she's never seen. There were no issues with my mum's care. The carers are getting the blame, but they were doing a good job." One carer told the county press, "We went into work one day and were told it was shutting and everything was in black bags. The owners brought the home 6 months ago and made cutbacks. It should not have been done like this. I saw a 101-year-old lady being marched across the road at 7 p.m. in her pyjamas. Where's the dignity in that?" Another relative, David Cowles, who lives in Bristol, said, "This has happened within 6 months of new owners taken over. They're still running other homes for elderly and vulnerable people on the island." Oak Ray Care took over the home in the summer. The other homes they run are Trent House, Newport Road, Cows, Broad House Residential Home, Broadway, Sandown, and Fairhaven House, High Park Road, Ryde. Due to concerns raised with the CQC, inspectors visited Fairview on November the 2nd, 6th and 30th. The inspections identified a range of serious problems which were putting residents at risk of harm, including unsatisfactory administration of medicine and unclean conditions. The CQC used its urgent enforcement powers to ban the home from admitting new residents, and it issued a notice of potential closure, which the owners of the care home can appeal. Dr. Carol Tozer, Director of Adult Social Services at the Isle of Wight Council, said, "During this distressing time in finding alternate care places, the safety and well-being of the frail and elderly residents of Fairview House was our top priority." Oak Ray's statement said, "We unreservedly apologise to all the people who had to be moved to other homes on the island and their loved ones. We are accountable for the well-being of all our residents. We have failed in providing the care that they deserve. As providers, we sincerely apologise and also acknowledge the distress caused to our staff. We will continue to work closely with all the regulatory authorities in an open and transparent manner to ensure we never compromise our high standards again.
This is the moment we build up to, is the headline for this next piece. Isle of Wight Festival organiser John Giddings said this year's lineup aimed to shake it up a bit. This week it was announced Kasabian, Liam Gallagher, Depeche Mode and the Killers will be the headline for the festival in 2018. The Script, Van Morrison, Blossoms and James Ray will all perform at the 50th Anniversary Festival, which takes place from June the 21st to the 24th at Sea Close Park, Newport. John said, "I am so pleased we can finally announce the lineup. This is a moment you always build up to, and you live in fear of the reaction, but so far it has been amazing. The pre-sale has been incredible. We had to stop selling tickets or we would have sold out completely." When asked about the headliners was his favourite, John was torn. Having Liam Gallagher will be incredible. You will have the voice of Oasis singing Oasis songs on the Isle of Wight, he said. But then the Killers are a big crowd pleaser, and Kasabian are also a great rock band. With the voice of Oasis headlining the festival and Noel Gallagher having previously performed, some islanders might be hoping a reunion is on the cards. I think an Oasis reunion is pretty unlikely. I think hell will freeze over before that happens, says John. This year's lineup sees the Heritage Act Depeche Mode play on Saturday rather than Sunday. John said, Saturday is going to be a great night and we want to shake up the line a bit so people don't expect the same thing every year.
Floating Bridge back for a trial run. The Cowes Floating Bridge is set to return to service on Monday for a trial period. The usual charges will apply for cars and foot passengers, except between December the 23rd and January the 2nd, when travel will be free as a gesture of goodwill. The 3.2 million vessel has been plagued by problems with the chains, grounding, noise and cars being damaged driving on and off. The trial will give the Isle of Wight Council a chance to see if these problems have been fixed. Council leader Councillor Dave Stewart said the authority was determined to reinstate the service before Christmas and it would run as closely to timetable as possible. Further work to the chains and to reduce noise is due to be carried out in the new year. Council Chief Executive John Metcalfe thanked local organisations for their help and patience.
New cafe aims to put Isle of Wight on coffee lovers' map. The successor to popular artisan coffee shop Cafe Isola has opened at the former gift and cookware store Beavis in Newport. The new venture, Cafe Isola and the Chapel Street Roastery in Nod Hill, opened on Monday. Dan Burgess, who owns Cafe Isola and the Isle of Wight Espresso Company, which supplies commercial coffee machines and produces island roasted coffee, has high hopes for the cafe in Upper St James Street, which specialises in island produced food and beverages. Dan said that he had invested heavily to create a modern, spacious cafe serving coffee imported from Italy. The feedback we've had has been very encouraging, said Ventnor-born Dan, who first established Cafe Azola at Pyle Street, Newport, in 2006. I had been looking for a new site for about 5 years. The new cafe took us 18 months to refurbish, paying great attention to detail and preserving a lot of its natural features to make it a comfortable and cosy experience with a relaxing ambience. I think it will be put to the Isle of Wight on the coffee lovers map. It is a long-term project which I hope will continue as a family business.
Red Funnel reveals timetable for change. Red Funnel this week exclusively revealed to the county press its multi-million-pound plan for developing the East Cowes terminal. The scheme will be carried out in 2 phases, starting as soon as January, with demolition of the Trinity Wharf building to give 60 more car parking spaces. They will then total 230, or a current boatload, and prepare the way for the sale of that part of the site for development of a 60-bed hotel. Houses, apartments or mixed-use retailing and light industry. The interim development will pave the way for complete remodelling of the part of the terminal that incorporates Dover Road, which was allowed at a planning appeal. Red Funnel revealed it had at last bought the White Horse pub and will knock it down in 2019. The ferry company is in talks too with owners of the Chinese takeaway at the other end of the terrace and the 2 houses next door in Dover Road, which are set to remain if there is no agreement to sell. But Red Funnel revealed it would not seek compulsory purchase and would, if necessary, model its plan around them. We desperately need more parking capacity, and that is why we are first putting in place the interim plan, which will be complete in time to cater for the Isle of Wight Festival. This year it promises to be a big one, said Chief Executive Kevin George. He revealed Phase 2 would create the equivalent of 450 car parking spaces compared to Southampton's terminal of 336. This will be good for East Cowes and the island economy. It will allow people to park their cars and visit local businesses in what will become an attractive and efficient gateway to the island, separating traffic for our terminal from that going to the floating bridge and the rest of the town, said Mr. George. There will be a taxi rank, drop-off area, and we are talking to Southern Vectis about the best bus route. The time scale of separate development, not being carried out by Red Funnel, of the adjacent Camper and Nicholson Marina was using the Columbine Union flag hanging for boat storage instead of by the current tenant, Wight Shipyard, remains unclear. Mr. George said Red Funnel remained hugely supportive of the creation of alternative marine manufacturing facilities at Kingston Marine Park, which the Isle of Wight Council is trying to progress. Wight Shipyard built the new Red Jet 6 and is currently constructing Red Jet 7 at Columbine. It refits the Red Jet fleet too, and Mr. George revealed the current huge logistical challenge of supporting island industry. So far, it has brought work worth more than 14 million to the island. A boast hoist that can do the job at Kingston and creating a profit worldwide facility there are vital. For the refit of Red Jet 4, a boat hoist has to be brought in from the West Country to Wight shipyard, said Mr. George. He revealed all work on the new terminal and roads was now being funded by Red Funnel, because the company had been unable to use £3.2 million of Solent Local Enterprise Partnership, SLEP, cash, which had been pledged in time. But we are talking to the SLEP and to the Isle of Wight Council about a new application for funding to improve the town's public areas, he said. We are very excited about starting work after all this time. When demolition of the Trinity building begins in January, it will at last allow things that are beginning to change.
Noxious chemical killed gifted man, these headlines. The death of a man during a mysterious chemical incident in Cowes was the subject of an inquest where the coroner concluded he had committed suicide. Glenn Davis, 21, of St Mary's Road, was a highly intelligent man with an IQ of 161, but he had a history of depression and had tried to take his own life in 2011 and again in 2012. Glenn's father, Andrew Davis, told the Isle of Wight Coroner's Court last Thursday the family had lived on a knife edge for many years. Mr. Davis said, "He told me I will not live to 30. You need not get used to that now. You will outlive me." He yearned for someone to give him an intellectual reason to carry on living and didn't want to hear anything emotional. Glenn Davis was diagnosed as being on the autistic spectrum and was classified as a genius, the inquest said. When he was at school, he completed more subjects than the school offered, self-teaching and enrolling himself on an evening course at the college. He taught himself to play the piano and reached grade 8, despite the fact that the family did not have a piano at home. He excelled in every subject he turned his hand to, and was accepted into Oxford University, but dropped out when he could not change courses. On the day he killed himself last April, he had lost a lot of money trading stocks and shares online, which his father said was the catalyst that led him to commit suicide. Family members found him in his room, unresponsive, with no pulse, and called the emergency services, who carried out the CPR, but Glenn could not be revived. A spokesman for Isle of Wight Ambulance Service said paramedics and family in the room started coughing and there was a metallic taste in the air. The house was evacuated, the road closed, and a chemical incident was declared. The paramedics and some family members were admitted to hospital. Vessels received from the scene contained a paste which was later identified as a substance which had killed him. The incident became an issue of international significance as police locally liaised with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security as part of an operation to tackle the supply work of the substance, which was thought to be originated in either China or Mexico. According to the verdict of death by suicide, Isle of Wight coroner Carolyn Summary said Glenn Davis was an exceptionally intelligent young man. He was gifted academically and blessed with great talents, but he had come some real difficulties in his life.
Couple sentenced for racial abuse. A married couple, one riding a mobility scooter, have been fined after footage of them racially abusing a man in the street went viral on social media. Gemma Day, 31, got off her scooter and pursued the man on crutches during the incident, the result of a family feud, in Ride on July the 10th. Gemma and Christopher Day, 39, now of Holsworthy, Devon, admitted a joint charge of racially aggravated common assault when they appeared before the Island bench last month. They have since moved away due to the publicity, they said. Christopher Day admitted using racist language towards their victim, Joshua Robinson, something Gemma Day denied doing. Exeter Magistrates Court heard last Friday there had been history between Christopher Day and his brother, and Mr. Robinson was his brother's stepson. Christopher Day was fined £369 and ordered to pay a £36 surcharge and £85 cost. Gemma Day was given a 2-year conditional discharge and ordered to pay a £20 surcharge.
Cat injured in shooting. A distraught owner is appealing for witnesses after her cat was shot by an air rifle last week. Zoe O. Holmes of Ulverstone, Whippington, said she noticed something was wrong with her cat, Harry. Returned home last Friday, and after taking him to a vet, they discovered an air rifle pellet lodged in his back. She said it's really upsetting because had they shot him in the head or the chest, we would have lost him. Following an operation to remove the pellet, Harry is expected to make a full recovery. His owners have now been fixed a collar with a cat cam and a video link that tracks his location. A £500 cash reward is being offered to anyone who can give direct information that leads to a conviction or fine. We will not rest until the perpetrator has held accountable by the law and publicity named, said Zoe. Hampshire police confirmed the cat had been shot at some point between Wednesday, November 29th and Friday, December the 1st. They could not confirm if the attack had been deliberate and said there had been no other reports similar incidents in the area.
Children with autism hit by cuts. The number of specialist school places for children with autism is set to be slashed, despite parents saying there was huge demand for provision. There are currently 12 places for primary-age children with autism spectrum disorder, ASD, and 24 secondary-age places, more than the island needs, according to the Isle of Wight Council. it plans to cut the number of secondary places to 16 from April 2018, saving £112,000. Parents have spoken out against the decision and said the island needed more provision, not less. Ashley Cole of Newport said her son, Ethan, 7, had struggled to get the support he needed. She said, "Demand is not falling. People are having to wait so long to get a diagnosis, it seems that way." Ethan is believed to have Asperger's, is high sensory and has dyspraxia, but has been waiting 2 years for a medical diagnosis. As reported by the county press, children were previously referred to an autistic diagnosis unit in Southampton, but it had to turn them away due to an unprecedented number of referrals. The contract has now been taken on by the Island National Health Trust. "I can't even get a blue badge to help me take him shopping. I've ended up in hospital after trying to restrain him, but they think he's fine," said Ashley. Another parent of 3 children, 2 of whom have been diagnosed with autism and 1 who has been on the waiting list for almost a year, said the decision was short-sighted. She said, "More children are being diagnosed with autism and they need to be educated somewhere suitable." Cabinet member for Children's Services, Councillor Paul Brading, said, "Over the past few years, the Council has commissioned 24 places for secondary students with ASD, and over that time, around 16 pupils have accessed the provision. This has meant some places have not been filled. Obviously, if demand went up, that decision would be reviewed."
Isle of Wight Sexual Health Service cuts. Cuts to Isle of Wight sexual health services are the worst in the country, according to data released by the British Medical Journal. It reveals the budget for island services, including testing for sexually transmitted diseases, and providing contraception has been slashed by almost half, 47.9% since 2015. Isle of Wight Council for East Cowes and former outreach sexual health worker Carl Love said, "How can the Isle of Wight receive the largest cuts to its sexual health service when it is also the most socially isolated locality in England?" Cuts to this award-winning service threaten the safety of the island population, particularly younger people. Yet the Council's public health budget has been cut to save money, while hiding behind veiled language and talk of new ways of working, which is code for cuts to be public services. Nick Belfit, Isle of Wight Liberal Democrat parliamentary spokesman, said the MNG figures are shocking and show the dangerous situation the island is in as more services are cut. Our healthcare services are on the brink of collapse. The cuts on the island in sexual health are by far the worst of the whole country, and once again our island, which has been characterised as an area of deprivation, continues to hurt the worst. Cabinet member for Public Health, Councillor Claire Mosdell, said, "The Council is committed to ensuring the delivery of high-quality, robust and caring sexual health services. There is no plan to send services to the mainland, other than those already being provided." She said services would be provided at various and more convenient times and places across the island, rather than hospital. But Councillor Love said reducing the service and splitting up its operations will cause inconsistencies in service delivery and cost more.
Sorry, Donald, it's not that Teresa May. An island woman was the centre of a social media frenzy when US President Donald Trump tweeted her, thinking she was the Prime Minister. Teresa May Scrivener, 41, originally from Newport, who has the Twitter handle @TeresaMay, received the tweet last Wednesday night but didn't discover the presidential blunder until the morning. Teresa, who now lives in Bognor Regis, couldn't leave her house the next day because reporters were camped outside all day. Since the gaffe, she has gained more than 1,300 followers and has received countless tweets. I find it quite funny, Teresa said, but I think he needs to think a bit more. I'm lucky he didn't tweet me to say he was going to war with North Korea. Teresa hadn't yet received an apology from the White House, but said she doesn't hold out much hope for one. This is one of the most powerful men in the world. I don't think he realises the hassle this has caused. My daughter had a doctor's appointment, but we had to do a phone consultation because I didn't want to take her out and have all the reporters in her face. I've had so many tweets I can't read them all. I think I would be there all day if I did. The tweet came about because the US President has retweeted a series of anti-Muslim videos from far-right group Britain First, and Prime Minister Teresa May's office released a statement criticising the President for retweeting the videos. President Trump replied on Twitter, Teresa at Teresa May, don't focus on me, focus on the destructive radical Islamic terrorism that is taking place within the United Kingdom. We are doing just fine. Unfortunately, he tagged the wrong Teresa May. Teresa said this was not the first time she'd been mistaken on Twitter for Prime Minister, whose handle is @Teresa what do you call this thing? Underline May. I had the name on Twitter before she became Prime Minister. I'm not changing it now.
And that brings us to the end of this review of the county press for this week. So for myself, bye-bye for now.
And goodbye from Imelda as well. Bye.
Good morning. My name's Stephen and I'll be reading part of the features part of the county press for you this week.
And I'm Jan.
And we'll be starting off with some readers' letters, the first couple of which relate to the floating bridge. First one headlined, Floating Bridge is Real Issue, from Roger Wilkins of God's Hill. I read with interest the article about possible restoration of two of the island's railway lines. Obviously I support this proposal, but the reason of reducing the road traffic between Newport and Ryde obscures, in my view, the major issue of the missing floating bridge at Cowes. The new floating bridge entered service in June, stuttered along and eventually being withdrawn in September, effectively isolating East and West Cowes. I continue to find, with limited success, evidence of progress in restoring the service. The last report said an inquiry was being run by the council to establish liabilities and there would be an update in January. Frankly, I don't care whose liability it is that can follow once service has been re-established. May I suggest the county press has a few column inches each week to report on progress, and in the event there has been no progress, the few column inches are left empty. And another letter on the same subject, headlined Floating Farce, from Colin McCourt of East Cowes. Once again, we hear that oversized, overweight and underchained floating bridge has run aground well north of the slipway at East Cowes. Despite the fact Floating Bridge 6 fails to meet most of its requirements, council officers still try to make it fit or work, much like King Canute trying to stop the tide. Having looked at what has happened over the procurement period, it is obvious that there has been a severe lack of systems engineering and learning from experience. Ignoring the wishes of the Cowes Harbour Commission and not using experienced people within their own ranks, the council is now turning what was a profitable venture into a loss-making one. This will further deplete stretched budgets, creating hardship for many vulnerable people. Floating Bridge 6 fails to reduce queuing times, increase the number of crossings, where a timetable of 6 crossings per hour was stipulated, shorten turnaround times, improve passenger accommodation, reduce running costs. Fewer crossings than before mean people drive round via Newport, so running costs increase to the taxpayer, all of which were requirements. Looking at the 20-year lifespan, I could have calculated it could lose £5 million. A solution could be to bring the old floating bridge back and patch it up, while we procure a more suitable bridge.
And going on, this is the letter of the week from Paul Rainford of St Helens. The other day, I went online to buy a rail ticket from Ryde to London. Although it didn't seem a bargain, it was cheaper than it could have been, because it was a super advance off-peak rail card, or a combination of those words. There are tight restrictions on when you can use such tickets, and it wasn't clear from the website exactly what those were. So I decided to get off my backside and travel to the ticket office at Ryde Esplanade, where the friendly chap answered my query in seconds. I explained how the website had been useless in providing the information, and he said because so many people are buying tickets online, there was a threat to the future of the ticket office staffed by real human beings. If it hadn't been for this chap's information, I could well have ended up supplementing the already hefty fare with a hefty fine. When it comes to rail ticket offices, it seems to be a case of use them or lose them. Not everyone is online. The Isle of Wight has its fair share of older people, and the loss of such offices would be a real blow.
Another letter on the subject of the railways, headlined "Let's Seize This Railway Line Opportunity," from Councillor Chris Quirk of Shanklin South and Councillor Michael Beston of Shanklin Central. Here in Shanklin, we are fortunate to have a well-used train service, giving our town a fully connected rail and boat link to the mainland. This is of huge benefit to residents and to visitors who enjoy our tourism offer. We therefore welcome the proposals of South Western Railway to invest in Island Line, including more modern rolling stock and an earlier train from Shanklin. However, it is our hope other towns on the island can also enjoy a train service in the future, and one that provides a link to the mainland. That is why we welcome the possibility of railway lines to Ventnor and Newport being reopened, mentioned in the county press of the 1st of the 12th, particularly the latter as our county town. A route between Ryde and Newport could be transformational in easing road congestion on the A3054, and in doing so, support the upcoming regeneration of Newport Harbour. Bob Seeley is right to acknowledge restoring these routes won't be easy, but these challenges are not insurmountable, and the island should do all it can to realise this opportunity in the years ahead. We urge all island residents who are interested in the future of Isle of Wight Railways to attend the public meeting at Shanklin Theatre at 7 p.m. on Thursday, December the 14th, to find out more about the proposals to improve the existing route and the longer-term plans for line extensions.
And from Angelo Hewitt of Whippingham, I should feel flattered. David Atkins, who wrote the county press letters on the 1st of December, believes I have the superpowers to demand that the then Highways Department spend vast amounts of public money to make major alterations to Whippingham Highway. I was a county councillor from 1998 to April 2002, nearly 16 years ago. The alterations I think Mr. Atkin is referring to were made some years later. This was well after my time, but I do recall from press coverage that generally changes were being made to bus stops, so wheelchair users could easily get on and off buses. My main priority regarding roads when I was a councillor was to get the flooding sorted out at the bottom of Alveston Road and improved visibility for car users leaving Folly Lane. What a shame Mr. Atkin has held a grudge against me for so long and patiently waited for the opportunity to publicly attack me over something I didn't do. He is also probably not aware there has been a vast increase in house building in East Cowes, that the chain link ferry no longer operates, and that Red Funnel is busier than ever, all of which increases the amount of traffic on the main Whippingham Highway. I should also advise him hold-ups will get even worse when traffic lights are installed to support the big development down Folly Lane. Again, nothing to do with me apart from my objections at the time. I await his public apology, she says.
And now a letter from Mrs. P. Bond of Ryde, headlined, "Where is the Humanity?" On November the 25th, my son and grandson came over from Portsmouth with his van to clear his grandmother's garden, now that she is in Inverhouse Care Home, where she is very happy. The garden was overgrown with trees and shrubs, and sorting it out, then loading it all into his van, was very heavy work. On visiting Lynnbottom Tip with a Portsmouth permit, he was turned away and told he needed one for the Isle of Wight. He offered to pay but was still refused, even though he told them he was doing it for his nan. Where is the goodwill and humanity? My son had to take the garden rubbish to Portsmouth and use the tip there. This is disgusting when all he was doing was a good turn for his 99-year-old grandmother.
And following on from that previous letter from Angelo Hewitt, there is a letter from Derek Atkins of Bembridge. In response to Derek Atkin and everyone else predicting various doom scenarios when the fixed link is eventually built, I assume you and everyone who know what will happen also predicted the financial crash a few years ago, the result of the referendum and the last general election, and made millions by correctly betting on the outcomes. One thing is certain, and that is the population of the island will grow over time. Currently, the ferries often struggle to cope with traffic using them. Just how they will cope with the increased island population and the increase of tourists, which we hope will want to visit us. Yes, island roads will have to improve, even if just to cope with the extra people living here.
Now a letter headlined, "No response from our MP," from a Sandown Bay Academy pupil whose name has been supplied but withheld. As you may be aware, it has been proposed Sandown Bay Academy Sixth Form will be shutting in August. Following this announcement, I recently emailed our MP Bob Seeley, expecting to be able to discuss with him the issues and views of this proposal. I understand he is extremely busy. However, it has been almost a week without any response to my email. Due to a fairly limited consultation period, time is not something that we have to spare, and the complete lack of response is extremely concerning considering his promise to save the school in its entirety. Others have voiced similar concerns about this issue. Without him contacting anyone and leaving everyone in the dark about any progress or decision, can it be assumed Mr. Seeley is neglecting this problem within his constituency? This seems rather surprising when you consider his activity last year in helping the school and its troubles with AET in the lead up to the general election. We are still fighting, but without cooperation from our MP, we are forced to look for longer routes of action, including through other candidates who seem to care more about the Isle of Wight than the man who is meant to represent it.
And this is a letter about Ride School. Ride School riding roughshod from P. Nettleton of Ride. In the more than a year Ride School has been planning its 3-storey boarding house, not a single member of the Ride School management team or governors has paid a visit to their adjacent neighbours to discuss and assess the impact this huge project would have. This is despite repeated invitations. Anyone would think they were ashamed of their proposal and would rather not view its consequences. Speaks volumes about the school today. And from Mr. and Mrs. Pearmain on the same subject, Ride School is flying in the face of democracy. Ride residents, Ride Town Council and Isle of Wight Council Planning Committee have rejected their awful application for a 67-bedroom boarding house in the style of a budget hotel. Ride School is still appealing the decision without listening and engaging with residents and council to help address the many concerns put forward. Ride School has gone straight to HM Planning Inspectorate on the mainland to overturn the island's decision. It seems arrogant and unfair. Ride School can disregard the decision.
Now a letter headlined Regenerate Our Towns from Mr. P. Scott of Ride. An overwhelming impression of friends who visited this summer was that the countryside was as delightful as ever, but the towns are beginning to look run down. Places such as Ventnor and Sandown are in desperate need of regeneration. My hometown includes a theatre that was sold off and not a single thing has happened to it since. Also, there is a half-hearted restoration of the listed Royal York Hotel. In addition to this, we have the ills of seaside life and the cost of ferry fares. We are still fortunate to have a railway linking some of these towns. After many years of neglect, a significant amount of money is needed to renew this. A standalone investment may be hard to justify, but in the context of the railway being a catalyst for regeneration of our eastern coastal towns, it could happen. Poor roads and public transport condemn many in Wroxall and Ventnor to unemployment. Therefore, I feel any investment should include an option for the reopening of the Shanklin to Ventnor line. I feel strongly the recent announcement that money is to be made available for reopening closed railways, then some of that money should be allocated to the island, or we risk being condemned to a continuing decline.
Now going back to our looking back column, starting off 100 years ago, on December the 1st, 1917. A vicar's wife issued an appeal after freshwater teenagers killed her valuable ducks. Mrs. Combs wrote a long letter about the boys who had stoned 2 of her ducks to death, stating they were kept for food production and purposes and not fed on grain. A well-known islander was killed when his liner, returning from Africa, was torpedoed. Lieutenant A. Hebbs moved to the island to work as Unionist agent. When war broke out, he assisted in raising funds for the hospital barge scheme before signing up for service in West Africa. He often wrote letters that were published in the county press.
And 75 years ago, on December the 12th, 1942, the chairman of the Waterworks Committee accused a Ride alderman of barking up the wrong tree after he tried to argue he was overcharged for water. The County Council alderman had said Ryde and Newport had charged rural consumers too much for water. However, the chairman argued Newport had been charged less than any town on the island. An unusual and rare rat was spotted at business premises in Newport. Percy Wadham identified the rat as a black or ship's rat, which was very rare in the UK. This was the first of its kind spotted on the island and was considered to be stronger and more vicious than a regular rat.
And 50 years ago, December the 16th, 1967, a blizzard struck the island, grinding services to a halt and killing one man. Hundreds of motorists were left stranded and abandoned their cars. Buster, a 3-year-old white female terrier, disappeared from her home in Ryde and sped through the snow to Newport to find her master. Unaware, he had been taken to hospital. She was found exhausted and with swollen paws after she entered the 1A bus, refusing to move. She was taken to Cowes and soon reunited with her owner. Aww.
25 years ago, on December the 11th, 1992, a new maternity procedure was put in place at St Mary's Hospital after a mix-up at Southampton meant 2 mothers went home with the wrong babies. New measures included tagging both ankles, daily checks on hospital numbers, as well as names. And tourist chiefs called for a new master plan to project the island as a modern holiday destination. The Isle of Wight Joint Tourism Committee also planned an 11th-hour campaign to prevent the island being included in an EC directive on package holidays. The committee feared the costs of complying could close down some businesses.
And 10 years ago, December the 7th, 2007, taxpayers faced more costs as a result of the Undercliff Drive scandal, as 2 officers appealed against disciplinary action taken by the Isle of Wight Council. The former Deputy Chief Executive appealed against the Council's decision not to accept his resignation, but to sack him instead, while the purchasing manager appealed against the final warning issued by the Council. Meanwhile, a former senior councillor admitted he knew in 2003 there were problems with the procurement of Undercliff Drive. And also, 10 years ago, a charitable foundation was established by 4 islanders to build schools in Africa. Nick and Nikki Hayward founded Schools for Africa with Ian and Mariana Johnson after visiting Cameroon the previous November. The charity raised more than £27,000, enough to build 3 schools, and the money for 2 of these was raised exclusively by islanders.
And now the Wight Memories column, which is headlined Brannan in the 21st Century. And it speaks about a powerful new book recording changes in the island's scenery, its buildings and its townscapes through the 19th, 20th and into the 21st centuries. Kenneth Hicks, Fellow of the Royal Society of Arts and President of the Island branch of the Historical Association, has created his own island legacy. In April, he launched his authoritative book, An Island Legacy, The Isle of Wight Through the Eyes of the Brannan Family, from 1817 to 2017, and since then has sold all but 300 of the limited edition. It records changes in the island's scenery, its buildings and townscapes through the 19th, 20th and into the 21st centuries, showing how the Brannan engravers used the trick of perspective to cram everything in. Ken may reluctantly admit to being 83 now, but he has worked tirelessly, giving talks tailored to locations and organisations across the island, and in October to an audience of 100 at this year's Literary Festival. Promotion has paid off too, raising £5,000 so far for the Earl Mountbatten Hospice and providing a bursary for one promising island student with more to follow. An Island Legacy contains more than 130 original Brannan family engravings, many of which have not been seen before, with an equal number of modern coloured photographs taken from virtually the same locations. The Brannan family dynasty recorded island scenes for posterity, with engravings etched on sheets of steel and copper. It was young George Brannan, the grandson of George Brannan, who founded the county press in 1884. The editor of The Historian said in a review in November, "At an initial glance, this might be mistaken for a traditional coffee table book, but on careful examination it becomes apparent that this book is a serious contribution to our understanding of topography, landscape and history of the Isle of Wight. Published by Cross Publishing of Chale, An Island Legacy is priced at £45. Signed copies are available from the County Press Office in Newport."
And continuing on, My View by Malcolm Mine. Is this why we can no longer create art, he asks. This month I am handing over my column to a friend because he is a rather famous wordsmith. So I am thrilled that he has given me permission to publish these thought-provoking words. We must remember art. Today there appears to be little appreciation of those who spill their guts, metaphorically and literally, in pursuit of a higher ideal. Perhaps there is nothing left to achieve. Perhaps we have moved into a post-modern period. Perhaps people have gazed through the looking glass once too often, and there is no longer anything to shock them, to please them, to challenge them. Learned intellect has replaced creativity as the respected skill. Institutions produce production line students whose only noticeable skill is to memorize a textbook, produce facts upon facts for an hour exam, and then forget them all within 15 minutes. Everyone may have a degree, but does anyone have any feeling, any emotion, or any individuality? The creative impulse, the creative instinct, appears to inhabit a certain type of person, a certain type of saga. These people have too much personal saga for some, for most, and maybe even for all. The creative type often abuses alcohol, drugs and sex. In summary, they are open to all the abuses and possibilities of life. Those who work their 9-to-5 office job do not hold these creative instincts in high regard. Indeed, society as a whole seeks to castigate, scold and lecture those who follow this distinct path. They do not realise, for how could they, with such narrow minds, that great art, great philosophy, great culture has been created by those who are usually 3 sheets to the wind. Modern philosophy begins with René Descartes. Being teetotal for an astonishing 3 weeks, Descartes decided to get blind drunk. He would fall to slumber and dream 3 outrageous dreams that to him uncovered the truth behind the world and the truth behind all the sciences. Descartes, clutching at his bottle, was clutching at his consciousness and cleansing his soul. Determined to discover the truth, Descartes would sit alone in his humble room in front of the candle and meditate. This is also a reason why we can no longer create art. The modern world is obsessed with constant communication and constant attachment. People are constantly lodged and logged to their smartphones, desperately waiting for any message, any sign of validation. Solitude is no longer desired. Again, solitude has produced great works. The key to philosophy and art is solitude and drunkenness. Jean-Paul Sartre shows that solitude is necessary for existence, as it shows us the paradox of our very existence. We try and give meaning to our lives in a world that already means nothing. Sartre smoked over 60 cigarettes a day, drank like all the alcohol in France was soon to be sold, 100% above inflation rates, and took prescription pills on a daily basis just to make it through. The modern world is no longer interested in creating art and no longer produces the necessary environment for art to be created. We all lose. Without the arts, we would not have the means to express our fears, our worries, any hopes or dreams. Our dreams are the dreams of artists. We must let them dream again.
And now a column by Rebecca Roncaroni headlined, "I don't respect anonymous bigots." When I was a nipper, the only form of broadcasting was the radio and the huge wooden box with a tiny black and white television screen. Now we're all at it online through social media, which has taken off like a rocket, spawning more sites which fall into and out of fashion, but all have a couple of things in common. They are a great way to keep in touch with friends and family, share and debate opinions, share jokes, seek like-minded people out, and information. The flip side is we can all edit our lives to make it look as though we live in a Disney existence, where we're always looking our best, the kids are always smiling, the puppy is always cute, our partners and loved ones send huge bunches of flowers, we're always having a glass of wine and fab holidays, and perhaps most disturbingly, we develop our own little echo chambers. It's easy to have the only friends you agree with, follow the causes you believe in, join the political groups that appeal to you. When I look at Facebook or Twitter, I can pretty much predict what kind of comments are going to be made, depending on the group which is posted. And it's worrying. It's not normal conversation to join a group which supports your belief system and the members egg each other on in increasingly self-righteous posts offering solidarity. Where's the debate? Where's the critical analysis? Where is the skill of being able to discuss, disagree, compromise, agree to disagree and move on, perhaps even learn something along the way? It seems ironic that there have never been more ways to communicate with one another, and yet people are becoming more isolated and polarised in their own little sects. Then there are the trolls. Trolling has not only become an art form, it's become a weapon. Not just one sad, nearly always anonymous little person saying outrageous, cruel, controversial statements designed to provoke and hurt people. Companies and governments are also being accused of using troll armies to undermine, spread disinformation and recruit like-minded souls. Why are these people anonymous? Why don't they have the courage to stand up and say, "This is what I believe"? Last month, alongside my column about the cute puppy, the other columnist, perhaps in an attempt to be the local Katie Hopkins, but anonymous of course, took the Isle of Wight Youth Committee chair to task for saying, Isle of Wight Pride 2017 had been a success despite prominent homophobic columns appearing in the local press. He continued that the columnist shared the view, shared by many others, that sex and sexuality were an individual choice in 2016 and did not need to be a matter for public show. Is this brave warrior aware Pride isn't just about this country? It is sending a message globally to countries which abuse, torture, cast out and kill people simply because they are gay. Is Mr. Mime aware that being gay on the Isle of Wight can be a lonely, isolating experience, and Pride has helped many people feel that they are not alone? The world is bigger than Little England, Mr. Mime. This anonymous column was either written purely to attempt to emulate the controversy the original column detonated nationally, or was an attempt to garner like-minded people to band together against the outraged and disgusted people who support Pride and are proud to stand up and be counted. Either way, While I respect the maxim, I may not agree with what you say, but I'll defend to the death your right to say it. I do not respect those who pen snide, bigoted, pompous and ignorant views anonymously.
And we go on to the never-ending battle to help the most vulnerable. This is the Behind the News column by Emily Pearce. Charity Citizens Advice is struggling to cope with the demand for its help. In the worst cases, we are giving tents and sleeping bags to people because they have nowhere to go. That's when you feel you've failed, said Paul Saville, the man who has been running Citizens Advice Isle of Wight for just over a year. In the age of austerity, where public sector funding has been slashed to the bone and welfare support has been relegated way down the government's list of priorities, Paul and his team are battling on the front line to help some of the island's most vulnerable people. Last year, the charity helped around 7,000 people, and demand is increasing all the time. Based in Newport High Street, with outreach services across the island, Citizens Advice offers information and support on everything from debt management, consumer complaints and housing to education, employment, health services and hate crime. By far the most common problem for those walking through the door, an average of 10 every day, is the benefit system. They have been told they are not eligible, or they have been sanctioned, or they haven't filled in the forms correctly. They have been told it is a 6-week wait for a new claim and they can't pay their bills. They are desperate. Normally, when people come to us, they are at the end of their tether. They've been to the job centre and told they're not getting their benefits. Perhaps they've been through a bereavement or a relationship breakdown, or they've lost their job and they are struggling to pay their rent, their bills. They don't have savings and they don't know what to do, said Paul. People come in and say, I've got 3 children at home and no food. And sometimes all we can do is give them food bank vouchers. A retired police inspector who still plays the tuba with the police band, Paul, 52, who lives in Northwood, took the chief officer job because he saw an opportunity to help people. A community stalwart, he has been involved in running the Gurnard Scouts, the troop of choice for his 3 grandchildren, for 25 years, and has been the Isle of Wight County Scout Commissioner for the past 3. He quickly set about increasing the number of volunteers at Citizens Advice, paying them expenses and looking for new funding streams. Securing enough cash to run the charity, in addition to protecting its core funding, is, he admits, a constant struggle. Last year's budget was £600,000, with the Isle of Wight Council, HMRC and the Money Advice Service each contributing about 1/6 of the total. The rest comes from funding for specific projects. The Help Through Crisis service, for example, is funded by the Big Lottery Fund, and donations. The Council has committed to providing all the same amount of funding next year, but only after halving it in recent years. It's tough, especially because a lot of people don't realise we're a charity. They think we're part of the council or run by the government. We have to fight for our funding, said Paul. The problem, of course, it is never enough.
Around 1/4 of phone calls go unanswered, and the office shuts at 3:30 p.m. and at weekends. Paul said, "Demand keeps increasing. The volunteers and staff who have been here a long time will tell you people have much more complex needs, that we spend much longer with each person. We can't keep on top of it. We're a charity, so it's horrible to say we can't help you, but we just haven't got the resources." More funding would mean we could help more people, and we are talking about the most vulnerable people in our community. Remote Services Manager Sandy Nicholson, who oversees phone, email and web chat contacts, agrees. People's issues have become much more complex as the landscape changes. More people are slipping through the net, more people are on lower incomes and more people are in poverty, and there is less money to help them. The supporting people funding has been cut. There are fewer support workers available. It's the same at the hospital. It's everywhere, she said. We see people who have been shifted around the system because services are failing to provide the support they need. I remember the days of a healthy budget when support was available for people. Not for everyone, but for most people. And now there is a whole cohort of people who can't access support, and many aren't lucky enough to have the skills to manage their everyday lives. The benefits system is ridiculously complicated now. It's so hard to navigate. You get council tax benefit from the local authority, other benefits from the Department of Work and Pensions, tax credits from HMRC. There are so many forms and people are expected to do everything online. We are seeing more people who are getting everything they are entitled to, but it's still not enough. It's something I feel very strongly about. You wouldn't work here otherwise. I saw the advent of food banks. 10 years ago, we didn't have a food bank, and now it's commonplace for people to rely on it. The number of people who are struggling has increased exponentially. Paul continued, "A lot of people who come in are working, but in low-paid jobs on 0 hours contracts. So you have working people who are struggling to get through a regular week, and that's worse than it used to be." He said controversial medical assessments for employment support allowance or personal independence payments had put some people off even trying to claim. I've been flabbergasted to see some people with obvious physical disabilities who haven't been granted help, but we've won 27 out of 29 recent tribunals for them. It is hard not to feel a bit I Daniel Blake when confronted with such injustice. When asked how he voted in the general election, Paul, used to erring on the side of political neutrality as a former police officer, said, "I didn't vote Tory." He appreciated Bob Seeley's support on reducing delays for universal credit claims, however, and thinks the MP genuinely does care. Running Citizens' Advice, a role that must surely be on some days as disheartening as it is rewarding, I asked Paul if he went home thinking about the people the charity had helped or those it hadn't. "I'm a glass half full person. If we weren't there to help those people, where would they have gone?" he replied. You have to think that. Otherwise, what's the point? That's why we do this. Citizens Advice Isle of Wight can be found at 7 High Street, Newport. Drop-in sessions are held at West Wight Community Sports Centre in Freshwater on alternate Tuesdays from 9:15am to 12:30pm and Aspire Ride on Wednesdays from 10am to 1pm. Other sessions are held in Ventnor, Sandown, East Cowes and Cowes by appointment only. For further information, call 03444 111 444 or visit www.citizensadvice.org.uk/local/Isle of Wight. Isle of Wight spelled with dashes between Isle of and Wight.
And a volunteer's story, Diana Conyers. I've been volunteering here for nearly 2 years after I moved to the island from East Sussex. I'm also a Ryde Town Councillor and a Labour Party member. Before I retired, I worked for several overseas development and aid organisations, mainly in Africa, as my husband was Zimbabwean. I do feel like I'm doing something worthwhile. You're supposed to do everything online these days, but this is one of the few places you can still come in and talk to someone face to face. I like getting to know people, and even if you can't solve all their problems, at least they have someone to talk to. We are sympathetic. In the system, I feel there is a lack of sympathy. You can see it going back to the 1980s, when they were rolling back the state. It was all about privatisation, and that's been the direction of travel. A lot of people who come in feel as though society does not care about them. The most common problem for people is their benefits. Quite often it's disabled people who have had their benefits stopped. I do think a lot of these decisions are harsh. It's based on a point-scoring system, and if you get enough points, you're considered disabled enough. I think it's inhumane. You get the feeling it's just about saving money, she says.
And now, not a great deal of what's on this week, but we can tell you that Peter Pan is on at the Trinity Theatre in Cowes on Friday from 7:30pm and Saturday and Sunday from 2:30pm. Also, the Imperial Nightingale is on at the Apollo Theatre in Newport all week. And that's all from
And goodbye from Jan.
Goodbye. Thanks.
Isle of Wight Society for the Blind is again hosting the Short Story Writing Competition Awards Ceremony at Newport Minster on Monday the 18th of December. Doors open at 5:30pm with the ceremony starting at 7pm. Back to record the winning stories for a second year are Katie Manning, best known as Jo Grant from Doctor Who and the Sarah Jane Adventures. Edana Minghella, accomplished jazz singer and island favourite. Recording for the first time this year is Melvin Hayes, best known from the TV comedy It Ain't Half Hot Mum. Musical entertainment is provided by Ricky J and Emily Scotcher, with special guest Edana Minghella. Come along for some festive fun and support Isle of Wight Society for the Blind, a local charity established in 1895. For more information, visit our website iwsb.org.uk. We look forward to seeing you.
Hi, I'm Hugh Dennis, and just before you revel in today's podcast from the BBC, I want to tell you about the BBC Radio 4 Christmas Appeal with St Martin in the Fields. Each year, the appeal helps thousands of people experiencing homelessness to take their first steps back to a safe and secure place to live. If you're homeless, the journey back happens one tentative step at a time. It's not just a matter of food, shelter and work. It's small gestures of listening, encouragement, thoughtfulness and seeing people for who they are that make such a big difference. Through the small act of making a donation to the Christmas Appeal, you can make a big difference for people right across the UK. You can make a donation by going to the Radio 4 website. Now, please enjoy this peerless podcast from the BBC.
Good evening. Tonight we're hoping to help out with what can at this time of year be a bit of a worry for some people. I'm talking about Christmas presents and Christmas shopping, both the giving and the receiving. There's the issue of what actually makes an appropriate present if you're buying for visually impaired friends and relatives, but there's also the practical business of actually finding the stuff in the first place and just how to navigate what's on offer when you can't see what's on the shelves. Well, I'm joined by three people who for one night only will be known as Peter's Little Helpers. They're blogger and mum, Joy Addo, author and climber, Red Sail, and making a welcome return after a bit of an absence, China enthusiast, that's the country, not the crockery, and grandmother, Chris Macmillan. How long is it actually, Chris?
Oh, since I was last on the show, was your anniversary one.
You were a questioner in the audience.
I was indeed, yes.
Well, welcome back, anyway.
Thank you.
Let's start with just how we go about buying and choosing presents, because this can be obviously the starting point for ideas. Not so easy in a way just to go out with a blank mind and hope you'll spot something. Joy, how do you go about it?
what I do first of all is think about the person that I'm buying for. So whether they have a visual impairment or not, I kind of think, what do they like? And then if they do happen to be blind, then I kind of try and make it accessible. If I think, oh, they might like this, then I'm like, okay, how can I make this blind friendly? Also, what I do is, I don't know how to type Braille, but I have friends that do. So what I'll do is I'll ask one friend to type another friend's Christmas card for me and vice versa, because I don't like to give people cards that they can't read.
It's a neat idea. Right,
Yeah.
That's just the sort of thing we're after. Red, traditionally men are thought to be more haphazard about this process, if not downright lazy, and leaving it to their partners. Now, you've got the excuse of poor sight now. Do you use it?
To an extent. I tend to be more a buyer of practical presents, whether my friends and family are sighted or not. So if it's a present for somebody who has lost their sight or is losing their sight, then I tend to try and choose a present that will help them do something that they don't find so easy to do anymore. Something that might help them read, something that might help them navigate around the house. And yes, I do relentlessly use my daughters, especially, for helping me go out and actually buy the presents or shop for them online.
And I must plead guilty to that as well. I used my kids as soon as they could walk, really, and I'm still using them now, and they're in their 40s. What about you, Chris?
Well, it's a mixture of all sorts of things. I know my friends far better than I do my family, so I have an idea, having been with them during the year or stayed with them, of something I might buy for them. I would look it up online from the shops that I use to get to see it, and then go to the shop and physically buy it rather than online. If I have to order it and pick it up in the store, I will.
So you want to handle it?
Yes, I must handle things. When you get to our age, sometimes it's better to use a voucher, because then the people that you're giving them to can fill in the things that they really want, particularly if you're going to send them through the post now.
OK, we've established a few ground rules, so let's get on to concrete suggestions. Chris, I know you're a keen cook, so stuff for the kitchen, maybe?
Well, my very, very best present of all I have had 41 years. It was a wedding present. We now use it every single day, sometimes twice. It is a salad spinner. I didn't bring it because it's a bit bulky. It's lightweight. Put it all together, put your green leaf vegetables, ignore the fact it says salad, they still call it a salad spinner.
So why is it so good for visually impaired?
What you do, you put the lid on, you spin it, and it's a manual task. And when you hear it going up and you can't twirl it round anymore, you take your hand off and it winds down, and when you take it out, your green vegetables are as dry as anything. It's a lot better than patting them dry with a tea towel or a paper towel.
Right, and things don't kind of get lost, presumably. Everything is contained.
No, that's right. And then you just lift the colander out,
right,
and Bob's your uncle.
You said it was 41 years ago. Are they hard to find?
No, they are now very popular. I'm just surprised that ours is still going. It seems to be indestructible. The cheapest ones are sort of clear, but if you want and need colour contrast, look more for the branded goods, because a lot of them have very bright green on it somewhere or in it somewhere.
Right.
Makes it stand out a lot easier in the kitchen.
And just to reassure people, we will have some additional information about the products we mentioned and where appropriate prices. Any other favourite culinary things? Joy, are you into the cookery stuff?
Not really.
Not really.
So I'm very keen on giving people not just what they need, but also what they want. I think when you're giving a present, it's kind of like you want to put a smile on their face and you want them to enjoy what you're giving them. So a lot of the time I get friends like perfume and earrings and jewellery, things like that.
Have you brought some?
Yeah, I've brought a perfume along. It was given to me as a gift, actually. Yeah. It's a Mariah Carey perfume, and it's really nice. And also, my sister gets me lots of jewellery for Christmas all the time. And that's cheap and cheerful, really. You can get that from anywhere. I like big hoop earrings. I've brought some along with me.
Should we pass them round? Hang on.
Here you go, Peter.
That's very exciting. Oh, they're quite big, aren't they?
I think these would really suit you.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can try them on people.
It's like pass the parcel here. They are quite big. I always worry about jewellery because it's really quite hard to visualise. I mean, clearly if you know somebody really well, you know the kind of things, but it is quite a risky business, isn't it?
No, not really. You can't really go too wrong with jewellery. I mean, you'll know what kind of jewellery that person likes anyway. If they're a friend or a family member, if they like small studs, then get them some small studs. It's I think it's really handy.
What do you think,
Well,
Chris?
Yeah,
Hey?
they're too big and clunky for me.
Yeah, but I think I'm looking at my friends who are in their 20s, 30s.
Yeah, we're old.
And I know that I know that it's the kind of thing that they would like.
Now, Red, I think you've been shopping in the RNIB shop, haven't you?
I have. The best thing I've bought for a long time for myself, and I hope my brother's not listening because he will be getting one too. It's a USB stick Sovereign Sonic player. So basically you plug a USB stick into it, turn it on, and it will play your...
This is an RNIB talking book.
Talking books.
A Study in Scarlet by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
It's about the size of a glasses case. It's got a big chunky button on the front of it, which is pretty idiot-proof, and it's got very few buttons to control it, all of which I believe are in bright yellow.
Is it specifically for RNIB audiobooks?
No, I plugged a USB stick in that had a load of music on it, and it played that quite happily as well. And it's very portable. I'll pass it around if anybody's interested.
Yeah, pass it to me, but while you're doing it, because it's interesting, there are now such a range of audiobooks, and some of them are from organisations like RNIB and from Calibre, but there are a lot of commercial ones. So just wondering, Chris, where do you use audiobooks, and which ones do you use?
I don't use audio at all, Peter.
Do you not?
No, I'm very much addicted to print, and I use a Kindle these days.
Right, and you can enlarge that
Yes.
satisfactorily for yourself.
Yes, it's much easier than holding any type of book up to your nose. Particularly when it's a book of 400 or 500 pages with very tiny print.
On this business of audio, I'd just like to throw my own 5 eggs in here, because I think one really good present would be to suggest use of the RNIB's Talking Newspaper service, because it offers digital versions of just about every national and many regional newspapers, plus a large number of magazines, all for an annual subscription, and that's where the present idea comes in, of just under 40 quid, 39 quid. You can get them from their website, but if you're not so hot at going online, which we're trying to remember that, some people don't go online and don't find that easy to handle, but can handle a laptop, then they can have them emailed directly to you as well. And Reb, you went to the RNIB shop. I'm just interested to know what you felt about the range of stuff.
There's a really good range. There are visually impaired people there who will walk you around and let you play with the samples that they've got out on show. And actually, it was a really pleasurable hour that I spent there, just poking around stuff that is there to help us. And in many cases, actually very thoughtfully and well designed.
I thought it might be interesting to explore unwelcome gift ideas, the kind of things that you really wish that weren't very appropriate for you as a blind person, or just weren't appropriate at all. Chris, what would you prefer not to receive this Christmas?
The phrase "one size fits all" fills me with horror, because one size did not fit me. And into this category comes something that was the bee's knees 4 or 5 years ago, the dressing gown that you could wear like a blanket.
Sometimes sort of onesie type things.
It wasn't a onesie.
It wasn't a onesie, wasn't it?
No.
I know the thing you mean.
They quite often was sold as a slanket.
Right.
So I think it was a sort of sloppy blanket. But unfortunately on me, there was about 3 foot at the bottom where I would have fallen over. Yeah. So I had to pick it up and carry it. So I had to abandon that, and I use it just as a blanket these days.
Didn't you? You also had some cookery thing that was a bit of a disaster, didn't you?
Yes, the mandolin, which was last year or this year's must-have device. It was too small, it was too sharp. I was absolutely petrified to use it in case I cut my fingers. My husband used it once, and that was it.
And
never again.
Right. So not the musical mandolin.
No.
Which might have been more useful to you, probably.
It would certainly have been a better idea.
Red?
I love cooking. I loathe getting cookery books, partly because they have lots of pictures that I can't see, and partly because they are so randomly laid out that you spend most of the time, more than the preparation time, looking for step 2 of the recipe. And it just drives me around the twist. So no more cookery books, please.
Right. Now, Chris, because you are a cookery fan, have you got a view on that or an answer to Red's aversion?
I would go with the Kindle, which is what we do now. We don't buy many recipe books, but if we do, we get them on Kindle because although my husband doesn't use cookery books, except for just checking on the cooking times, perhaps, I use a cookery book all the time, and it's very easy to get the pages mucky.
Right.
It's either that or you type them out, which is more likely now. Type them out and print them, and we've laminated them in the past, particularly for things like bread making.
Right. I'm not going to ask Joy about this because she said she wasn't particularly keen on kitchen stuff, so I'm not going to do it. Amongst Bête Noire presents, I must admit 2 things really. I got a Braille Scrabble set, and I must admit Scrabble fills me with horror. It's one of those things that people made you play as a child to keep you quiet. You know, when the adults were getting drunk after Christmas dinner, they said, why don't you go and play Scrabble? And I got this Braille set and I didn't like that. And I'm slightly averse to smelly things because it seems to fit into that image that blind people, that we must all go around, it's like scented gardens, you know, we must all go around sniffing things. But you're quite keen on perfumes, aren't you, Joy?
I'm keen on perfumes, but what I really wouldn't want to get as a present is like, you know, you can get those like bath sets. And they're like, you know, and it has like the little fizz bomb that you put in the bath, and it can come with like a hand cream and a body lotion, and you can get them from like Boots. And I find it really just like not a very personalised thing to get someone. I feel like that's like lastminute.com. She's a girl, what can I'll get her a girl's one, or he's a boy, I'll get him a men's one. And it's just like, no, there's no thought in that.
Right. Now, one of the things which is often said to us by visually impaired listeners is that life is not just about gadgets and equipment, it's about people and experiences, and often what they want is more people, more experiences. So I'm thinking about maybe offering something such as perhaps a trip somewhere someone might not have had the confidence to go on their own. So suggestion, because I think, Joy, that was another idea that you quite like, the idea of an experience rather than a thing.
Yeah, definitely. An experience is always really good. And there's so many different things you can do. A friend of mine actually went and did a driving experience. He used to drive before he lost his sight. And obviously he can't drive now. And his partner took him for a driving experience. And he really, really enjoyed it. And I think that could be something that's really fun. And as I said before as well, if someone likes music, maybe getting them tickets to go to their favourite artist concert is a really good idea. Gets them out of the house, gets them doing something. It's something you can enjoy together, or you know, they can take someone else if they want.
Have you got one in mind, I think, for yourself?
Beyonce, Stormzy,
right,
Mariah Carey.
So a bit
if anyone's listening,
bit of a hinting here from Joy. Red, the experiential idea.
Yeah, actually, a couple of years ago, my wife bought me membership of the local theatre, and that means actually we've had a few really nice evenings out together, watching visual entertainment that doesn't have jump cuts in it like the TV does. So that's been really fun. And actually, for maybe younger visually impaired people, or anybody who's sighted as well, I'd buy a book of tickets to your local bouldering wall so you can find out whether you're any good at climbing without having to rope up and just climb a wall and fall onto a crash mat. It's really good fun.
Are there a lot of these climbing walls around then?
All over the place.
Really?
Every town in England has one now, I would say, if it's over a certain size.
Right.
They're springing up all over the place, and they're a great place to meet other people, do some fun exercise which, you know, makes you focus on your physicality without necessarily your level of sight.
There are gentler versions of this, aren't there? Couldn't you join a rambling club or something like that?
One could. It's kind of not for me. But
Okay. And Chris, on this idea of experiencing? Any thoughts on that yourself?
We have had some very good ones. We've also had some terrible experiences. So mixed bag. I'd say do your research extremely carefully.
I guess the other important thing is you really have to be certain that it's something that if you're giving the present, it's something the person really is going to want.
That was the actual thing. I'd probably be inclined to say, if it's something you can experience yourself first, or you know the venue,
right,
you might be more confident than something out of the blue.
OK. I haven't asked you favourite gift or best gift.
A china table setting containing everything from plates, saucers, cups, chopstick rests, little soy sauce jugs, and much more besides.
Now, Red, I gather you brought a present in for someone.
I have indeed,
Could
Peter.
Yeah.
These are for you, and I hope they're the first ones that you've had this festive season.
Well, they are, because I haven't had anything this festive season as
There
yet.
you go.
It feels like socks.
They are fantastic tactile socks. If you reach round the top, you'll feel that they've kind of got a ridge running round the top, which none of my other pairs of socks have. So when I'm sorting them out from the tumble dryer, I know that they're a pair. Unlike all the other sort of generic socks where I have to wait for one of the other members of my family to have 5 minutes to sort through them, I can actually be empowered in my laundry.
Well, thank you. Thanks for the socks, Red,
And
as
now so
opposed
you.
to the red socks. Joy, I gather you also had some thoughts about socks, didn't you?
Yeah, everyone loves socks, but I think tactile socks are interesting. Or, Reggie could do what Tom said a few weeks ago. And
that
just
was Tom Skelton, wasn't it?
Yeah, just get black socks. You can't go wrong with black socks. And if you lose one, you pair them with another black sock. It's fine. It's great. Stock up, black socks.
Well, I will accept any socks for Christmas because I have to.
Well, that was truly a little bit of joy at Christmas, not to mention a little bit of Red and a little bit of Chris. There will be details about some of the suggestions that we've come up with on our website and prices where appropriate. And that's just about it from us, from Red Sale, from Joy Ido, Chris McMillan, me, Peter Wight, producer Cheryl Gabriel, not to mention the team. Goodbye and good hunting.